What's up, everyone? My name is Kaleb, and welcome back to another episode of Kaleb's Korner, where I talk about movies. Today's episode is going to be about horror movies, and I have the very lovely Chloe Balcer. Chloe is a part of a variety show. What's that called again?
Chloe and Co. variety show.
You guys should give that a watch.
Absolutely.
Well, do you want to get started?
I would love to.
All right. So, now me and Chloe, we have very different, horror opinions. She's a much bigger horror fan than I am, personally. So this should be an interesting one.
Oh, yeah. I would say so.
So question one, when did you get into horror movies, and just why do they stick to you?
Well, I would say I've always really enjoyed the aspect of horror, but I didn't really start watching horror movies so I was 11, 12, and I'm not sure. I just really like the feeling, the rush that you get watching that happen.
Yeah, I personally, horror movies have not always been my favorite ones.
Mm-hmm.
Mostly, I wasn't allowed to watch them because, I think that's pretty self-explanatory.
Yes. Makes sense.
But I do like them. It's not like I don't hate them.
Mm-hmm.
There's a different genre of movies I don't like.
Yes,
that would be for later.
Of course.
But yeah, so I will watch them though.
Right.
They are good.
Yes. Oh, yes. Absolutely.
So for the next one, what is it about being scared that you like? Why do you like to get scared watching these?
I think kind of like I said, it's just a rush of adrenaline. It's just a really I don't know. It's just my favorite thing to watch because it just gets you so hyper and you never know what's gonna happen, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
The suspense,
Yeah, that's kind of with me for action movies.
Right,
I like the rush of action movies. For me, with horror, I already told, it's not my favorite genre.
Mm-hmm.
I'll watch it from time to time, mostly during Halloween time, of course.
Of course.
But yeah, it's just, I don't know.
Yeah, I understand.
I've never really been terrified of a horror movie. I have yet to find that horror movie that kind of just sticks with me.
Really?
Yeah, it's most of them I'm not really scared.
Yeah, I would say I'm not so much as scared. It's just that feeling in the moment while you're watching it. And, it doesn't stick, but it's just in the moment.
Yeah, they're there's definitely ones that kind of they make me jump.
Right.
I have been scared in a horror movie
that
before.
happens many times.
Yeah, Paranormal Activity. That one kind of freaked me out a little bit.
That's understandable.
All right, so what do you think about horror comedies?
Okay, I have a very big opinion on this. I think it is the stupidest thing.
Why do you think it's the stupidest thing?
Because I'm not watching horror movies to laugh. I'm not going in there expecting to be cracking up, thinking it's the funniest thing.
So you would say that movies scary movies should not exist?
Yes, absolutely.
So, well, what about zombie horror, zombie comedy movies?
I guess, I guess to an extent. Obviously, throughout the dialogue, I guess it's okay, but I feel there's just a point where the whole movie just revolves around comedy. I don't really think that's really considered horror at that point.
Yeah, I would agree with you. I like horror comedies just because I like to laugh. Comedy is kind of it's one of my favorite genres out there. I don't know. I kind of have to disagree with you. I do like horror comedies.
I respect your opinion,
yeah,
but
I think some of them are pretty hilarious. I like when they make fun of horror movie tropes, all the stupid decisions that people will make.
I do find that funny, but I don't feel that's something I want to watch going into a horror movie.
Yeah, there is a movie. It's Michael Jackson as a ghost, and it's the guy, he's freaking out, and Michael Jackson starts fighting him, so he does all of his kicks ow, ow.
Right.
And I thought that was hilarious. That was just funny to me.
I do find that funny, but just not in that setting. I just don't find that those two things mix very well.
I get that, and there's some pretty terrible horror comedies out there, because the Scary Movie franchise, it definitely went down from what I heard after the first movie.
Right.
So there's some pretty terrible horror comedies.
Yes, exactly.
All right, so let's go to the next one.
Okay.
Is there a point in some horror movies where you think it's just there's just too much? It's there's too much of them trying to scare you, and it just doesn't work anymore.
I think that's possible. I feel if it's well written and there's the proper amount, no. I feel there is a point where you can go overboard with it. Mm-hmm. There was this one movie I watched. It was the worst movie I have ever seen in my life.
What was it called?
It was called Joshua. It was the worst horror movie I've ever seen. It went on for so long, and everything just got dragged out so much. It was one thing after the other, and it was awful, and I hated every second of it.
See, for me, when I think horror is doing too much is when they do too much gore. It's like
yeah, I can understand.
it's like I'm okay with like gory horror movies. Like I'm not like ugh by
Yeah.
it, but it's like it gets to a point where it's just disgusting. It's
Yeah,
like
I
I don't want to be like
understand.
watching like all this splatter going
No.
on. It's just gross at that point.
No, yeah, I agree with that too. Like I feel like with suspense and also with gore, like those are the two things that are like most commonly like too much.
Yeah, because like with suspense, it's like it's just dragging on. It's just like
Yes.
all right,
Yes.
I'm waiting.
Yes, I
and then
agree.
like the reveal isn't even good.
No, yeah, I know. I agree with that.
So, are you a slasher or a psychological horror
Okay,
girl?
so personally, I like psychological. Not to say that I don't like slashers, but they're not my favorite thing.
Mhm.
I like on any day I would prefer psychological. So I just feel like I don't know. I just like that so much better. Like sometimes I feel like slashers can just get stupid. Like you just I guess that's kind of the point, but I just don't find that very entertaining to watch.
See, for me, I personally like slashers more. I like the more like actiony
Right.
kind of thing. You know,
Yeah.
I'm an action guy.
I know that's right.
Yeah, it's like and like with like some slashers, there's like very like a lot of pop culture icons that have
yeah.
come from slashers. Michael Myers,
yeah.
Freddy Krueger, Jason
Yeah,
Voorhees.
see, Halloween, that's probably like the one that I don't think I could ever get like sick of or hate. Because that one,
That is a great-
I do
it's a
really
great
like
movie.
Halloween, without a doubt.
Yeah, I love the Nightmare on Elm Street movies.
Mm-hmm.
I think Freddy's hilarious. Though they do get really crappy
Yes.
after a while.
Right, yes.
But yeah, I don't know. The thing about psychological is that I've seen some like more bad psychological movies
Yeah,
than good ones.
I agree.
And the bad ones are just
That's-
so unbearable to watch because of how boring they get.
That's true. Like you have to find the right one,
Mm-hmm.
but I feel like slashers are just like always the same thing, which you could argue with psychological that happens as well.
No, I would
but,
agree with you on the slashers.
But
They're
I
kind
just
of
feel like
all
it's
the same.
always like the same thing happening. Like, oh, they're gonna kill 20 people. And, okay.
Yeah,
Alright.
I like the one good psychological movie that comes to my mind is Paranormal Activity.
Right. Yes.
And yeah, and there's this movie called Creep. It's a really good
Mm-hmm.
one. Ironically, they're both found footage movies, so
Right.
you can obviously tell what type of
I-
horror I do like.
Yes, I do.
But yeah, that's kind of my opinion as
Right.
well.
Yeah. Okay.
All right, so what do you think about horror remakes? Because I have a strong opinion on them.
Well, I think if they're made properly, I think that's good. But I don't like when they like go too far outside of the original. Like when they totally change everything. In that case, I don't like
at,
that.
At that point, it's just like a reboot.
Yeah,
It's not even a
exactly.
remake.
Yeah, I
See,
agree.
for me, I just hate remakes in general, but I
Right,
really
I
hate
know.
horror remakes because like so like starting from like the early 2000s, it's like they're like remaking like every single like 80s horror movie
That's so true.
and they're not good.
Yeah.
And the one thing I hate the most about remakes is when they just completely copy a shot. It's like I
true.
already watched it and I watched it be done better.
Right. Yes.
So why are you making me watch it in a really terrible version?
Yeah, I agree. Like if you're not gonna make it like the same, but like your own version of the same thing and make
Yeah.
it better, like that's cool. I like that.
Yeah, like maybe like take like the same story.
Right.
Well, I mean with horror it's kind of the same
Yeah.
thing.
Right. Exactly.
But like take the same thing, but don't change it too much.
Yes.
Like the Nightmare on Elm Street remake is horrendous.
Yeah.
What they did with Freddy is just
What did they do?
it's just terrible.
Right.
It's
Yeah.
terrible.
Yeah. Exactly.
All right. So do you consider anything Alfred Hitchcock horror, or is it kind of its like own thing?
Well, I feel like it is. Like I feel like if it meets like the criteria of like horror, which it does, it's like very like psychological.
Mm-hmm.
It's very he can have some like gross parts to it. Which not all of his things are considered, but I would say like his most commonly like known ones are definitely horror.
Yeah, because like Psycho is definitely a horror.
Yeah, oh yeah,
It's
absolutely.
it's also like the movie that kind of like pushed the boundaries of like what you could get released. Because the shower scene in that movie.
Yeah, that was like crazy for the time.
Yeah, so the story behind it is that the MPAA, the people who like censors pretty much everything.
Yeah.
They watched it and they told him that he had to like cut out certain parts because they were like, oh, there's certain things
Can't have that.
yeah, it's like you have to cut some of it out.
Yeah.
So Alfred Hitchcock was like, okay, so he took the movie from them, then he gave it back to them, and then they approved it. The thing is he never actually changed anything. He told them that he changed it, and they're like, okay, let's just release it. So that just shows you what kind of like director he was.
Right.
He knew what he wanted.
Exactly.
And the scene it's one of my favorite scenes of like horror movies of all time.
And that was like, I feel like that sparked like a lot of like inspiration for like horror movies to come.
Psycho is definitely what like is like definitely like how like the rise of like slashers started. Like Psycho and Texas Chainsaw Massacre. Those are like the two that really shot up the slasher genre.
Yes, definitely.
Though, did you know there is 4 sequels to Psycho?
I don't think I knew that.
Two of them revolve around Norman Bateman.
Really? Well, I knew there's a lot of things that revolve around Norman Bates, but I don't think I knew that specifically.
And then the 4th one is a remake.
Oh, it's probably bad.
Because they just recreate like the shower scene. They just do it exactly the same. Mm-hmm. It's like, but it doesn't work that time. Right. It works so much better in black and white. As well.
Yes, I agree. Yes, I feel like that aspect of his work is very not only, I guess like that was kind of just like the time, like it was black and white, but I feel like that makes it so much more like encapsulating, whatever that word is. Like it just makes the watcher, like you envision it yourself and like you kind of have your own aspect of it as you're watching.
Psycho was also the first movie where they played the trailers first because Alfred Hitchcock did not like how they would play the trailers last because everyone left. Who watches the credits? Yeah, I mean, unless it's a Marvel movie, but who watches the credits? So Alfred Hitchcock, and some of like the posters, like you'll have a picture of him like pointing to his wrist, saying, "Make sure you get to the movie on time."
He's a very smart man.
Because they shut the doors immediately, so like you couldn't get in like once the movie started.
He knew what he was doing.
Yeah, and so he's a great director.
I agree.
All right, so. What are your opinions on horror movies that are based on true events?
So I would say like it depends on the type because I feel like there's a kind where like it's actually like live and they're like filming like true events like happening. Like I feel like that's one thing, and then you have the kind where it's like written, it's pre-written, and like it's like an actual like plotted out scripted movie. Mm-hmm. And so like I feel like they're both cool, but I feel like sometimes when it's like already pre-scripted, that's just like they take it out of proportion sometimes.
Yeah. For me, with like horror movies based on true events, I personally think they only put that there for marketing.
That's true.
Because like back on like Texas Chainsaw Massacre, like the movie is saying it's like, oh, it's based on a true event.
Right.
But like the only thing it's based on is like a serial killer. Like like there is no like crazy Texas family that took that got all these teenagers.
Exactly.
So like they really only said that just for like a marketing thing.
Right. And I do think sometimes, I feel like most of the time that is true. And sometimes that is not true, which I will get to that later with a certain question you'll be asking me in a little bit.
All right. So I got 2 more questions for you. What is an unpopular opinion about horror movies?
I don't think I really have an unpopular opinion. Like besides the things I already talked about, I would just say like the whole like slasher, like horror comedy thing. I feel like that's like the biggest like difference I have with people like you, like yourself. But I wouldn't say it's unpopular because I feel like a lot of people would agree with me. There's also probably a lot of people that disagree with me, but I wouldn't say it's unpopular per se.
Yeah. So for me, my unpopular opinion is that out of like all the film genres, I think some like horror definitely has like some of the worst movies of all time in it. Because there's, especially like from like the 80s, like horror from like in like the 80s is like what superhero movies are now. They were releasing so much. Very true. It's what made the most money back in the day. And
I just think it was just like the time, like the effects and like everything wasn't the best.
To me, like horror and comedies has like some of the worst movies of all time.
Okay, I think I could agree with that statement.
All right, so I got one more question for you.
My favorite question.
What is your favorite horror movie?
So my favorite horror movie is actually The Conjuring.
The Conjuring.
But the entire Conjuring universe, as you know, it's like a whole.
Yeah, it's like an MCU kind of thing.
Basically, I would say that's like my favorite like entirety like of like movies. But The Conjuring is probably my favorite like of all time. And going back to what you said before, this is actually based on true events. And what I like about The Conjuring is they actually did incorporate like things that actually happen, and they actually show like before the movie starts, they like show you like the evidence, like this is actually like something that happened. And yes, they do take some things and change.
Out of proportion.
Yeah, they change things, but for the most part, the general story is the same, and they use like the same people and the same plot line.
Because I don't think like in Conjuring 2, like there's like, what's his name, like the Jackbox man?
Oh yeah, definitely was not.
I don't think a giant Jackbox monster came and attacked.
That is not true, but they do show at the end of the movie, they do show the actual like voice recording of like the girl getting possessed.
I thought that was cool.
So I do like how they do incorporate those elements into all of those movies. So, but overall, I would just say The Conjuring. I just love that movie. Could watch it every day.
So I'm trying to go quick here.
Yeah, definitely.
I'll just say my favorite horror movie is probably Halloween. It's.
Oh, that's a close like top 5. I would say for me.
It's like it's what put Michael Myers on the map. It's what put John Carpenter on the map.
Yes, exactly.
And it's a movie. They only had a budget of $500,000.
Yeah, I think that's crazy. That movie is so low budget, and it's become such a big thing.
Yeah, like
it's insane.
It made so much money too.
It did.
Like, yeah.
That's crazy.
Well, thank you for being on my show, Chloe.
I really appreciate it.
Amazing, as usual.
You as well.
And I will see you guys in the next episode.